At a reasonable. So they said, okay, we'll have that done.
So the threat to
I did. Which? Which said, this is what we want.
they did say that.
Of course. Well, I didn't say
Okay. Okay. I'm going to, does this work? Can you hear me? Okay, okay. I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Riverwoods. Would you please stand with me and say the pledge? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, will the clerk please call roll, please?
Mayor Ford,
Present.
Trustee Clayton,
Here.
Trustee Eastman,
Here.
Trustee Hollander, Trustee Jamerson,
Here.
Trustee Smith,
Here.
and Trustee Dickon is absent as well, but we have a quorum.
Thank you. First order of business is approval of the minutes of the meeting of the Board of Trustees of November 19th. Do I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions, comments, additions, deletions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next is our Finance Director's report. The first order of business here is the approval of the bills. Do I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
Trustee Eastman,
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson, Trustee Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Our Finance Director's report. Director Vasquez, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one item for tonight's report. Bob Hammer, our building architect, has provided us with the report that was completed recently by the acoustic engineer for their findings on our boardroom. It is a 50-page report with a lot of technical detail and a range of recommendations for how to improve the room. Essentially, the amount of hard sound-reflecting surfaces in this room make for an overly reverberant acoustical environment. Our staff needs to meet with Mr. Hammer to help us go over the detail in the report and understand the pros and cons of the different options. It seems the possible solutions are wide-ranging from 20,000 up to 90,000. So we need to dive in on the details of the pros and cons there. The cost for the report was approximately $4,200, and we will keep the board informed on the options available that make the most sense for the room after we have a meeting with Mr. Hammer.
Any comments? Trustee Jamerson, please.
Just a quick question. Was it only acoustical treatments, or were they looking at doing something with maybe aiming the speakers differently, or was it just acoustical?
I have not read through the entire report. They sent it right before the holiday weekend, but it looked like it was mostly treatments or especially in the ceiling area, like a plaster instead of what we currently have. So it seemed like a arrangement of different treatments in different areas like that.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions? Okay. Do you have anything else for us for this evening? Thank you. Any other questions for our director? Okay, seeing none, moving on. Our treasurer is not with us this evening. Director of Community Services report. Director Witt, please.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple items tonight. Saunders Road, just an update on the water leak. Not too much activity over the Thanksgiving weekend. We're still searching for the leak. At this point, we think it may be more related to the east-west section of the pipe. But we're going to meet with GHA, I believe, on Thursday to go over a plan of attack to nail this thing down. Unfortunately, to compound the situation for the homeowner, the county experienced a leak in their high-pressure sanitary line within the last couple of days. An air pressure release valve failed, and the piping was leaking fluids into the drainage ditch and freezing along the roadway. The county did react to it in a very timely fashion and completed the fix of that last night. So the homeowner was happy to see that the county was able to get through and do a quick repair on that portion of it. Adjudication, just to let you know, the next hearing date is scheduled for December 19th at 10 o'clock. That's the usual date and time on third Thursday, 10 o'clock. Next year, we switched the date and time due to scheduling conflicts with the, I think some of the other cases that we have within the village. So next year, we switch to the third Tuesday of the month at 9:30 in the morning for anyone that's really following that or wants to attend. Nobody has so far, except I think the mayor. Federal Life demolition package. WB Olson is finishing up the demolition bid package. We scanned all the available drawings for the building, found a complete set for both the building as well as the reservoir. WB is packaging that. The release of that package should be yet this week. We just wanted to give some of the project target dates. So the building walkthrough with bidders will occur on December 10th. Asbestos removal, and we'll talk about that in an upcoming item tonight, is currently scheduled for December 11th and 12th. The receipt of the bids for the demolition work is scheduled for December 23rd. The recommendation to the village board thereafter would be on January 21. Contractor mobilization, January 28th, and project completion, everything cleaned up off-site, everything restored no later than April 10th. And then the last thing that I've got, which is probably more near and dear to me than some others here. Just wanted to say about 2 years ago, the Village Hall HVAC system was modified to include a building automation system. That system is failing dramatically at this point. Prior to Thanksgiving, the inside temperatures of some of the village offices were close to 60 degrees. In the last 2 days, when I got here, 7:45 temperature in the southern offices ranged from 51 to 52 degrees and made it up to a balmy 64 at the end of today. We've tried to adjust the temperature range through the ZoneX building automation system, which is in place, only to find out that the software won't let us into the system in order to make any kind of modifications. Unfortunately, when we were able to do that earlier this year, the system only allows us to modulate the temperature about 1.5 degrees plus or minus. So being at 51 degrees, it could have got to 53 in my office. So after calling a representative for Zonex to get back to us, it took 5 days for them to get back to me and tell me, you have an IT issue. So we had our IT manager look at it, and he said, you have a software issue. So the fingers are doing this type of deal. So they think that we need a new motherboard or some other equipment on this thing. So in order to get around the finger pointing, I had Emmy Bach, who is our building HVAC maintenance contractor, come out. They were here today, spent about better than 2 hours looking over the system. And they indicated that the system problem is somewhere between the thermostats and the damper control modules, both of which are proprietary items, which they can't fix, but they could replace. So what I asked them was, could those be replaced? And he indicated that, yes, we could change those out to basically standard residential style, but commercial grade thermostats to control the temperature in each room individually, which is what the automated system does, but to bypass all the computer software that nobody can get into right now, and go back to a non-proprietary system. This is an example of what the system is doing currently. When the representative from Emmy Bach was here, they took an infrared thermometer and read the temperature of my ceiling supply grill. It was 64 degrees. The thermostat read 64. Vivian's office is on the same mechanical unit as mine, and her temperature coming out of the ceiling was 130. So there is a difference somewhere in the modulators that we'd have to rip all of that stuff out anyhow in order to accomplish this. So in order to get this system to a non-proprietary system where any mechanical contractor could come in and fix an individual office, instead of these problems being village-wide, they guesstimate at this point that the cost would be somewhere between $18,000 and $24,000. So what I'm asking tonight is if we can get consideration to allow the contractor to move forward, order parts, get this moving, and validate their proposal at the next board meeting. Otherwise, we're probably looking at getting repairs done somewhere in January. I'm open for questions.
Trustee Jamerson, please.
I told you.
So I did talk to,
Before you start, did you take the temperature in the ladies' room in the back?
No, I did not, but I can also tell you, if you talk
Because
about
it wasn't
restrooms,
50 degrees, I can guarantee you that.
I guarantee you that is the case. And I could also say that within a half hour of the start of this meeting was the first time that there was heat coming into the men's room. I didn't visit the restrooms, all of them today, but I did yesterday. And yes, you could have used the women's restroom as a meat cooler.
Yes, yes. I went home. I just wasn't good, you know, I just went home.
But staff
Came
is,
back, and then
but
I,
staff
you know,
is somewhat
came
at
back
fault
and
at
thought,
that,
you
for
know.
that, because all I heard for the last 6 months is how ungodly hot it is in the women's restroom, and you can't go in there and spend more than 5 seconds to wash your hands because it is a sauna.
It's a sauna,
Okay,
yeah.
now that we got that fixed, everybody
Well,
wants the
it's-
sauna
yeah,
to
but,
come
you
back.
know, we miss it, but thank you, thank you. And Trustee Jamerson, take it.
just a quick correction at the very beginning. There was always been an HVAC management and energy management system
Okay.
here. It was replaced
About 2 years ago, and that's the
about 2.5
contract that I
years
saw.
ago.
2022, January.
And I'm not pointing any fingers, but I didn't have anything to do with it. Just want to go on record. I'm always a proponent of not having systems that are proprietary, because you can only go to one or maybe two people to get them fixed. So if there's somehow that, our current HVAC company can make this system so that it's not proprietary, I'm all for it. I don't know what else to say. It's unfortunate that it's gotten to this point where it's so cold in the building that people can't do their work. I mean, that's not.
Yeah, watching Moses sit there with gloves on and a space heater was really painful.
Yeah, well, space heaters aren't the best thing either. If the fire department was here, they would tell you
All
that.
right, I didn't say that.
Um,
Back that tape up.
So anyways, if there's any way, I don't know what
It was not on the agenda, but if we could have a motion, if the trustees so agreed, that would really be helpful to us, and we could bring it back, I guess, validation.
I mean, it's an
Yeah.
emergency situation, I think.
Yeah.
Just an understanding
Mayor
that
Ford, may I ask a question first?
Oh, sure. Trustee Smith, please, sorry.
Thank you. So Director, what I understand, so going to the non-proprietary is something in the $18,000 to $24,000 range. Do we have a sense of how much it would be to replace the motherboard or whatever is required to do the proprietary? I'm just trying to look for kind of a check balance.
No, don't have that in front of me at this point. But my concern is, it took 5 days to get back to me.
Sure,
When
I
I told
understand.
them that the temperature ranges were below 60 degrees in our building, the response time is non-existent.
Yeah, no, I understand, Director Wood. I was just asking if we had any idea.
Fair question. No, I don't.
I think because technically the board has approved things that aren't on the agenda, we can order the stuff that'll come out on the bills at the next board meeting, and it'll be on the agenda for approval. Then I think you're just looking for a sense of the board that we're going to go ahead and order everything, and then we'll bring it back to the board for approval at the second meeting.
If I could,
Yes.
Sure.
all right, Trustee Clayton? Okay, all right. I
Just,
think it's a consensus that yes, Trustee Clayton, please.
just a quick question. Is there anything contractually that we have with our current contractor, the HVAC, in terms of maintenance of this system?
Yeah, we do have a contract with them. They come out 4 times a year, but this is not to be repairing components of the system. They look at making sure that the airflow is there, that the heat exchangers are working, the filters are pulled, cleaned, things like that. They're not looking at, and they will do testing, but if they find an item that is in need of repair as say the module on the unit or the thermostat itself, that is not part of a package deal for them to make those replacements. They would indicate to us, this item needs to be replaced. Give us a quote, we would move forward with that.
But nothing with regard to response times or response times to our concerns or anything contractually, we have no recourse.
No, but they're not the ones that we're having the issue with. This particular contractor has been somewhat Johnny on the spot. They did all the repair work at the police department in a very timely and efficient and professional fashion. They did repair work here at the Village Hall recently. So we're good with Bob performing. It's the company that's the building automation system company that we're having the issue with.
And is that a mutual relationship as well?
No.
Okay, because I was wondering about like early termination.
No, there's probably 1 year guarantee, and we're past the guarantee period at this point.
I believe it was when I looked at it.
Okay.
Consensus then,
Yep.
that we can move forward with this and validate? Okay,
Get it
Yep.
fixed.
thank you. On behalf of the staff, thank you. Do we have anything else for us this evening?
Not for me.
Okay, are there any other questions for our director? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our consultants' reports. Our attorney's report, please.
Just to let the board know, since we did have a large presentation about a possible development on the landfill parcel, our understanding is that contractual negotiations are temporarily, the parties are at a difference of opinion about the purchase price. It's not much the village can do about that, so I have nothing more to report on that at the moment.
Are there any questions for our attorney? Okay, moving forward, Plan Commission report. Chair Brightcroft, please.
Good evening. The only thing I have to report is that the Plan Commission will again meet on Monday, January the 6th at 7:30 p.m. It's not our usual time of the month, but because of the holiday, we decided to push it back a few days. So that's the plan at the moment. That's it.
there any questions for our chair?
Anything in particular on the agenda?
Yes, I think Bruce probably is in the best position at the moment to report.
I think we're going to try and get the hearing for the President County Development Ordinance in front of the Plan Commission, unless we think we need more time for discussion.
We actually have 2 cases, so I don't know how much we want to overload the commission. We have the Chudy subdivision, and we also have Orphans of the Storm that want to come in, and the 2 of them are tentatively scheduled for that date.
Okay,
So
I'm all for that.
it-
I can maybe move that to February then.
That makes sense because that would be an awful lot to do all 3.
I don't want to overload you.
We can take it,
You can take
but
it.
it's probably not the best idea for the evening. That's it.
There any other questions? Any questions for our chair? Thank you very much. I spoke with the chair of the ZBA, and she has no report this evening. Police report, chief?
The only thing I have is the police activity, which is in your packets. And we did conduct some training with the fire department at the Federal Life Building. So we found it very useful for that. So we were glad to get in there before the demolition crew comes.
Are there any questions for our chief? Okay, moving forward, Fire District, Chief Kruger is not with us this evening. Information items and comments from the president. First, I wanted to talk a little bit about is workshops or committee of the whole. And if we want to try to have more workshops, or if we would like the first meeting of the month to be a committee of the whole, where we do not conduct business, but we talk about business. Maybe discussions on topics. So those are options that I would like to place in front of the board, and you can let me know how you feel about that. Workshops are very productive when we've got a topic, and we can all sit around the table and without the pressure of having to take action, and discuss those. So I think we've got one more workshop coming up on the residential plan. Oh, no, I'm sorry, on the affordable housing issue. No, we don't? Okay, I thought we were going to do that.
Can I just add one?
You can, you
slight
absolutely can.
amendment?
Please do.
The choice to have a committee of the whole meeting on the first of the month does not have to be exclusive of a board meeting. For many years, the village had a committee of the whole meeting the first Tuesday of the month. But what we found is that we had to reserve the right to pass something in case something came up or a bill came up. So the committee of the whole meeting would then be followed by the regular board meeting if there was any action on the agenda to be taken. So they're not, I just wanted to point out, they're not mutually exclusive. You
Okay,
can-
thank you.
You can couple them.
But I'd like your comments and certainly topics as well. Trustee Jamerson, please.
I think it's a great idea. But we approve bills twice a month right now.
Yeah.
And I think I suggested some time back that we either figure out a way to allow the standard bills like the phone bill and the power bill and the gas bills and all those to be paid automatically. I mean, I don't know that that's the right word, Attorney Huvard, but it could be a consent decree. I don't know how that would work, but the problem is that the timing doesn't always work for the second board meeting to pay some of those bills. And in years past, there were times when we got notice of disconnection of our telephone service and extra fees because we were paying the bills at the time, which is not happening now because we're doing it every 2 weeks. So that would be my only comment, is that we try to figure out some way to those bills that are going to be off that cycle to get those paid. And maybe we pass an ordinance for certain vendors or for certain amounts. I don't know what
There are some ways to handle recurrent bills. That's what you're talking about.
Other than that, I think it's a great idea.
Okay, well, again, I'd appreciate, sending your comments. We can kind of put those all together, maybe some topics. And as we get into 2025, see how it works. I mean, there's nothing saying we have to do it one way or another. Nothing saying we can't change once we start. So just wanted to bring that to you. Also, just to let you know that we are engaged in reviewing some of GHA's services with an eye toward the billing of those services. And as we go through those, I have a conversation going with Todd Gordon, who is the CEO of GHA, just to let him know that we are reviewing those things and to let him know what we've found, if we find anything, and what we might do to strengthen or change the relationship in some cases. So again, it's a close relationship that the village has had with with Gaywald for a number of years, and we both sides value the relationship, and we want to make sure that we're understanding what exactly is going on, particularly with the billing, because they are one of our larger expenditures during the year. So that's trying to just put a close eye on those things. So that's actually all I have this evening. And next is visitors wishing to address the board. If you'd like to, if there's anything that is not on the agenda, and I sincerely doubt anyone's here to talk about the asbestos contract, but if you'd like to, something not on the agenda, Randy Merrill, good evening. Thank you.
Everybody can hear me?
Sure, yeah.
Randy Merrill, RPC. Haven't seen everybody in so long. I wanted to let you know that RPC, in conjunction with our task force and the village, is going to hold an open forum in January here at Village Hall on Wednesday, January 15th at 7:30 to discuss the current cost share program. This is not to have any conflict with it, but to use it as an example to educate the residents. Are they aware of the services that we have? Have they taken advantage of the services? And how can we engage them a little deeper? So in our newsletter tomorrow, I'm crossing my fingers, will be a link to a questionnaire that will be on our website, and it will ask a lot of questions, some of them definitive, yes, no, or other. We're going to review all of the different programs that the village currently offers. Are you using them? Do you not use them? Why are you not using them? Have you used them in the past and no longer want to use them? And then we will discuss a few other details about buckthorn removal to determine the importance that this is to the residents. Some people choose not to remove their buckthorn for various reasons. We can certainly speculate why, but we will ask them in the questionnaire. And also if certain circumstances if we were to remove buckthorn along the roadways, are they worried about privacy, things of that nature. So it's meant to be very educational for everyone. We're going to gather those responses over the next month and then be prepared to have a forum that is focused on those issues that are brought up. And again, we'll identify areas that we need to have additional, seminars with regard to issues. I mean, one thing that's always been very important to me is buckthorn and the expense that sometimes people are incurring to remove buckthorn might prohibit them from using the service. Is there a way we can safely educate our homeowners to be able to do this on their own? Are there some products they can use? So again, if appropriate, I'll encourage them to do the analysis, our ecological study with Steve Zimmerman. So it's across to say, if you haven't done this, please do so. And then even ask the question, if you haven't done that, is there a reason why?
Any questions? Trustee Jamerson,
I have a
please.
question.
Yeah.
So is this just in the RPC newsletter, or is it going to be in the RRA newsletter as well, since they may not have the same list of people?
So what we're going to do is the actual questionnaire will be on RPC's website. We're first going to obviously send out the communication. We have about 399 people that are subscribed to our email. However, we did specify that the questionnaire is for Riverwoods residents only, and one response per homeowner, per property. We also are making arrangements to send this particular questionnaire link to many of the homeowners associations. Thank you, Catherine Romanelli. We talked yesterday about the fact that we know we can't really share our databases, but if it's put out through, our homeowners associations, et cetera, we can do that. We'll submit it through RRA, and also we'll put it on the news link for the e-newsletter from the village. So good answer. And
Are there any other questions?
Trustee Eastman.
I was just going to ask, what is the plan? So after the survey is done and after the workshop is held, what's the plan for sort of vetting and working with the village ecologist in terms of getting buy-in or just having him give insight on what residents want and kind of running things through there?
You're going to join me?
I'm going to join you.
Okay. Do you want to talk about that? Because it's task
Yeah.
force?
I was thinking that after the forum, we being those of us at the forum, would figure out what the top key takeaways are and then discuss it both at the RPC, both at the task force, and figure out what are the top things we want to focus on. And then write up a presentation and then bring it to Steve to have a discussion with him. And I was in contact with Steve because he did a tree survey a million years ago. And at the back of it, it had resources for grants. So we do have a subcommittee for grant writing that has met. So I'm happy to report that. So we're hoping that this forum, this survey, is going to help us with educational purposes, but then also allow us to take the key takeaways to come up with a one-pager for going after grant money. So this is the intent. My intent is to remove the buckthorn and lesser celandine from all of Riverwoods. So that's kind of the mission of the task force, if you ask me.
That's great. No, I think that's good. And I think it will also be good to get grant money and figure out ways to offset costs of anything that's proposed, right? If it's possible.
Steve is going to be essential in this because Steve, we're hoping that the grant subcommittee was going to ask the mayor if the village would pay for us to meet with him to discuss any opportunities he might know of that we can go after. Because like, for instance, the Arboretum has a program for grant money up to $10,000. That's a 50-50 cost share. And theirs is a buckthorn removal replacement program. So I don't know if Steve knows about some of these local programs that we might be able to go after. So I was hoping we could really tap his knowledge and his talent on this to help us really focus a one-pager to really try to go after the funding out there, because there is a lot of funding out there. So it's just a matter of us putting together a presentation that will allow it. And fortunately, we have somebody with decades experience grant writing that will be guiding us through this.
That's great. Thanks.
Thank you, Julie. And then also some things we also want to be able to do is do seminars if there's really something that needs help. Plus, it'll also help budgetary wise. If we find that people are really going to become interested in that, well, that's certainly a monetary issue. And then discuss, I know there's probably some programs that we've budgeted money for but are not taken advantage of. That's not the worst thing, at least we offer the programs, so that might, again, help as we think about, is this still a practical way of getting people to protect what we have in our woodlands? Right. Good.
Are there any comments or questions from anyone? Thank you very much. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to make? Got it. Did she turn it off?
Hello? There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I wasn't sure whether this is a good time for us as residents to discuss the burn ordinances.
Why don't we wait until we get to that, and let's get these other couple of things out, and then we'll have council start with the discussion on the burn ordinance, and then you can join us at that point, if that's all right. Sure. Then we'll have everything in the same place and not have to interrupt. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on anything other than? Okay. Okay, moving on. This should be quick. First item of business is approval of a contract for asbestos removal services in an amount not to exceed $7,200. May I have a motion, please?
Motion to waive first reading?
No, it's a
Oh, it's a
contract.
contract? Motion to approve the contract.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? I think you recall that Director Witt has referenced this with respect to the demolition project.
This is just so everyone here knows what we're talking about. There's a little bit of asbestos in some floor tile in one or two rooms in the Federal Life building. And our environmental consultant advised that we have more of a specialty contractor remove this little bit of asbestos. They used to use it, I guess, in the material that cemented the floor tile to the floor. I'm speaking loosely, but it's not a danger. But in order to proceed with the demolition, it has to be removed from these rooms. And so our consultant recommended a contractor to do this work. And so working through Anderson Environmental, I think you have not to exceed amount $7,200 for this work. That's what this is for.
Director Witt, did you have anything to add to this?
No, we're limited to only one room. It's a computer room. It's a mastic underneath the floor system. So it hasn't really caused an issue unless somebody was pulling wires in there, but it's a relatively small room compared to the rest of the building. And it's only going to take 2 days for them to get this in and out. But again, in order to maintain the schedule that we talked about earlier, we need to get an approval if that's, doable tonight so that they can arrange to have this work done next 11th and 12th.
So that the fire department can get in there and
And then the fire
wreck it.
department can go back in and do whatever they want until end of January.
Further training.
Correct.
Yeah. Is there any other conversation? Are there any other comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson?
Aye.
Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next item of business is approval of a contract for snow plowing services for the 24-25 season with SE Inc. Director Witt, would you like to walk us through this a little?
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor. So this contract is for snow removal service for the 24-25 winter season. For this past season, Wayne Andre Contracting provided those services to the village. They were successful, responsible, and a low bidder. Last year, we got prices from 3 different contractors. Unfortunately, when they submitted a proposal to renew the contract for this year, his numbers were at least twice, if not higher, than what they were last year. He indicated to me that it was only the second time in 25 years that he really feels like he blew a bid. And he didn't realize how much time and effort it took until he actually drove the routes himself. He always wondered why his guys were taking so long to do things. So anyhow, his numbers came in high. So we went back and checked with other bidders. One bidder was booked for the season. The other bidder was actually going to subcontract the work to SE Inc. to do the job. And on top of it, his numbers were substantially lower than where Andre or SE Inc. was coming in at. So there's no way that was a responsible bid. So I went back to Sam Sharetta to see if he would honor a bid that he actually provided to us during the summer. He said he would. His numbers are lower than where Andre is proposing to be. So we're recommending that the contract be awarded to him. He has provided the services in the past. I am not aware of any major issues that have occurred. The chief has worked with him more so than I ever had, particularly with snow plowing, but I understand that he has been very timely in response and done a good job in the past. So I would recommend that we move forward and try him out this year, see how things go.
Do I have a motion for approval, please?
I have a question, excuse me.
Sure.
So I thought in a prior Board of Trustees meeting, we had discussed using potassium chloride. I see in their proposal, it's calcium chloride. And if I remember correctly, I thought potassium chloride was maybe better for vegetation or something.
It is the calcium chloride that we had decided to be using in lieu of the rock salt.
Oh, that's what it was instead of the rock salt. Right. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Do I have Trustee Clayton, please?
I have a continuing concern about the fact that we are paying for snow removal services for streets that should be private and not publicly maintained. At this particular point, I pay for snow removal services for my house, and the majority of taxpayers in the village pay for their own snow removal service as well as the snow removal service for these streets. And my position on this is at this point, it's time to do something about that. And I would only vote for this contract if we agree that the costs to be allocated back by street length and then bill the residents by street, by house for the services other than on Port Wine, Riverwoods Road, Saunders Road, the pump station, the police station, the pathways, and the fire department and village hall.
Your question touches on something far more wide-ranging than simply snow plowing. And I don't know, I understand that you'd like to talk about that issue, but I'm not entirely sure this is the forum.
Well,
I mean, time, rather, not forum. This is the forum, it's just not the time.
I disagree. And if we don't, that's what we say every time this comes up, that it's complicated, we can't privatize the streets, it's legally complicated, and so on and so forth. This is a very straightforward thing to do. We bill back the residents for snow plowing and so that they're on an even par with all the other taxpayers in the village. It is unfair for the taxpayers to be paying for the snow plowing of these streets. And I think now is the time to take a stand and to finally do something about it.
I only want to speak to the issue of what to do at the moment for the streets, which are currently village streets, and that is that I don't think the village can bill the residents on village streets for services it's providing to them on village streets. So my recommendation would be that until the board takes action to make them private streets, that they continue to maintain the streets as they've been maintained. I understand there's been discussion for a long time that the streets ought to be privatized, and the board has discussed and backed away from going forward with it. But if it chooses to go forward in the future, we can take up again what the pros and cons and what the legal path to doing that. But I don't think as a practical matter, we have a right to start billing residents on village streets for services that they've been receiving for a number of years, unless the board unless first the board, privatizes the streets.
I don't think there's any legal basis for that opinion. And I think that at this particular point, the village is providing a service and we can bill for that service, whether it's a village street or not a village street. We don't have to go through the whole process of privatizing the streets to be able to bill back for snow plowing for services.
Okay, well, I guess we disagree.
Yes, we do.
Trustee Jamerson.
Well, I happen to agree with Trustee Clayton. I'm just not sure exactly how we would do that, how we would bill the residents back if we determined it was legal. I have a proponent to try and privatize these streets for a long time, and the board at the time didn't have the appetite to dig into it. I think we should definitely look at this. I don't know that, as much as I'd like to postpone this, I don't think we can.
If you'd like to take this up as a separate agenda item at another meeting, we can certainly do that.
I think that's what, I think
Right
that
now,
would be
we
the,
need a snowplow contract.
yeah.
And I think that if you choose to vote against the snowplow contract, I think that's certainly within your right. But I think we need a snowplow contract, and we can certainly put that public issue on the agenda for further discussion. In fact, that might be a great workshop topic. I know in our history, we have talked about this, relitigated it, all of those kinds of
I mean,
things.
I
And it's
agree.
a difficult topic.
I'd kind of like to see, what the historical basis is, and I think it'd be a perfect workshop topic, but I agree that this isn't probably the time to hold things up because of it.
Go ahead.
Trustee Clayton, please.
I would just like to point out that every time this comes up, that's the response. Well, we'll get to it. We'll think about it. We'll find another way to deal with it. And so we approve the road maintenance contracts, we approve the snow plowing contracts, and we go through it, and we never take any action to resolve what I believe to be a serious issue in the village. And I would like some commitment that we are going to address the issue formally, and that we are going to decide what, if any, action should be taken with regard to these streets.
We can certainly set a date for a workshop. If you'd like to begin with the workshop, we can do that. If you'd like to begin with an agenda item on the agenda, we can certainly do that. My suggestion might be a workshop first, so that we can explore all the sides and the issues that are associated with that. So if that would satisfy you, we can set a workshop date either in January. Well, that's a little close. We can make it the first meeting in February for a workshop on the topic of public-private streets.
Can I?
Trustee Jamerson.
I have two things, but on that particular point.
Okay.
Can we, in preparation for the workshop, can we direct the village attorney to do research into the issues involved in changing private streets? Because I know there are issues. We talked about it in the past.
Yeah, we can resurrect that.
If we can
certainly.
get that done before the workshop, so that when we have the workshop, we at least have some answers to talk about.
Sure.
Does that make sense? And then
Yeah.
I do have a question. It says Riverwoods Road on here. And I'm wondering what part of Riverwoods Road is not covered by Lake County? Because doesn't Lake County cover Riverwoods Road, or is that our road?
Lake County covers Riverwoods Road.
Okay, well, it's a minor thing, but it's on this
Yeah,
list.
we have part of Saunders, and Lake County is part of Saunders.
Right.
So maybe there was some
But Riverwoods Road is
confusion between Saunders and Riverwoods Road.
Okay, I don't think it's a big deal, but.
All right, having said all that, do I have a motion for approval of the snow plowing contract?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay, is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Jamerson,
Aye.
Trustee Smith,
Aye.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
Trustee Eastman.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The last item under new business is an approval of an ordinance amending provisions regulating the burning of landscape waste. This is a first reading only. We will not be taking action on this evening. So what I'd like us to start with is just a review of what our attorney has prepared, understanding that we have gotten written comments from 3 residents, Meg Redalewski, Elise Powers, and Michael Powers. So those comments were received, not in time for us to incorporate those and send those along to you. And I'm sure Meg will want to come forward again. But if we could begin with the council walking through this particular amendment.
At the board meeting at which we discussed sort of the various views of trustees, unsurprisingly, all the trustees did not agree. This is a normal thing. And some were more desirous of ensuring that there was some right to continue burning leaves. I think others were not as committed to that position. We heard from residents who were very concerned for their own health, that they wanted it to stop. We heard from people saying that this has been going on a long time in the village. We have very large lots. So I'm prefacing my comments to explain that when the board asked me to prepare a suggested revision, sometimes what we do is aim for the middle with suggestions that can go either way. This isn't intended to be representative of what the village board thinks, because they're just looking at this for the, in this meeting, in this context. And so I tried to think of how would we give flexibility to the policymakers here on the board to tilt the scale one way or the other as they see fit after hearing from the residents. The first set of problems we were trying to address is what is the meaning of an air quality alert? We had a definition from 20 years ago, which not sure, I don't remember where it derived from, but we tried to update that definition. And there are now advisories that probably weren't in existence in the same way. We get an air quality advisory from the Illinois EPA. Lake County can be designated as unhealthy. There could be a local event that happens that's not countywide. The Illinois EPA doesn't declare advisory. And so we left the option open, as we already had for the village itself to declare that the air quality condition is harmful. The question is that just in anybody's opinion? I think that before it was that the president or two trustees could simply decide that there was an air quality problem. In this case, we tried to ground the decision in something that's become very well established, I think also in the last 10 or 15 years. The EPA, the US EPA, publishes the Air Quality Index. We were studying this quite a bit when we had the wildfires in Canada a year ago, and they give values. You can go on them every day and see right within our zip code if we are in the good range, moderate, unhealthy. I looked at a couple of other jurisdictions that I think probably had spent more time researching this, and I see that more and more jurisdictions are using Air Quality Index as one means of measuring air quality. So you'll see that there's the definition of Air Quality Index now in lieu of the older definition we had for air quality alerts. The same thing with fire alerts. The National Weather Service now has critical fire weather days that they alert the village to, or other governmental bodies. You'll see that sometimes on the news. They'll say this is a critical fire day. So we have, I think, more widely accepted bases for knowing when air and fire alerts should be declared. Then we tried to make our definition of landscape waste different from our definition of woody landscape waste. Landscape waste would be trees, tree trimmings, branches, leaves, does not include garbage waste, does not include anything other than landscape waste. Woody landscape waste would mean woody plants and trees in particular, not leaves, but hardier material, because we understood that that had become an issue in some places in the village. In terms of the prohibitions, then we simply looked at a window of time during which burning would be permitted. I think Sherry Graditor, the chair of our ZBA, made a comment that maybe we could just allow it, but only for a certain amount of time. The ordinance gives two windows, one in the fall, one in the spring, for approximately 2 weeks at each time between sunrise and sunset. Again, that's just a suggestion. I'm sure there will be many opinions about whether that's too tight, not tight enough. The same concern, I think it was Trustee Hollander had said that when a branch falls, or something with part of a tree falls, a lot of people would try and burn it rather than have to pay to haul it off the property. So rather than just have these narrow windows for landscape waste, the ordinance suggests that there be a time when woody landscape waste can be burned, because trees don't fall in that 2-week period, but that the amount of time that could occur would be limited to 3 days in any calendar month. I know some of the comments came back that already that was too much, although we could point out that this is a restriction that we currently don't have at all in the village. So again, this is our way of trying to provide guardrails that through discussions among the board and the public, you can try and come to some better sense of balance on this. So those are the main restrictions. Landscape waste shouldn't be burned when there's an air alert or a fire alert. Landscape waste can be burned within certain times of the year. Fallen trees and woody landscape waste can be burned a few days in every month. That's, and in general broad terms, that was the idea of how to, provide some discussion points.
Trustee Clayton, please.
Do we have any idea how many days out of the year in Riverwood specifically we are at 50 or below or above 50? I mean, is this something that we seldom achieve, or is this something that's pretty common for us to achieve?
I've seen us achieve it, and I've seen us not achieve it. We did not achieve it when the wildfires were going. We have achieved it on other days. So I think this information is historically available, and I'll make a point to try and get it. I think that these records are obviously published every day. They must be kept someplace.
Trustee James, please.
I have a couple of comments. First of all, I don't think we should allow grass to ever be burned because it's never dry and it always creates a lot of smoke. So I think I would like to have that
exclude that in
excluded. Second of all, there's a couple of issues. There's a couple of items that are, not a big deal. I can send those to you. But my bigger concern is in 1G5, which is page 44 of the packet, in regards to the prescribed burns. Did you check with any of the burn companies like Tallgrass or anyone like that about the time periods you have in here? And I only ask that because the time that I've had my property burned, sometimes they have to get permits for that, but they never know exactly when it is. And the last time they called me 2 days before, I mean, they sent postcards out to everybody in advance, but they never know exactly when the wind speed's going to be right and the temperature's going to be right. So I would just suggest that maybe you get a hold of somebody from Tallgrass, if you haven't already done that, to make sure that, or whoever that's on the recommended list, to make sure that the timing in here is correct.
I talked about this with Steve Zimmerman quite a bit.
Okay.
So I didn't know how to do it either. And he said that depending on weather and climate, they come up with the preferred windows each year, and it changes. Sometimes it's in late November, December. It's different.
Or sometimes it's in February.
And that's, I think, why he suggested that they do submit at least 1 month in advance. They can apply early, and then they would just wait for when the period is.
Okay, as long as it doesn't conflict with that, that's my concern. So if you did sounds like you did. Sounds like you did your homework.
Trustee Clayton.
I should know better.
51G4, I'm not sure my math is entirely correct, but I try to double check it. An acre is 43,560 feet. On a square, that means each side of the lot is 208 feet. In order to get to 300 feet from the nearest, it's impossible to get to 300 feet.
It might be the wrong number.
Burn at your neighbor's house.
It might be the wrong number.
Was intentional?
No, I don't. We'll take a look at that.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks. I had that exact same concern
Okay.
because our lots are like an acre and I don't think I could burn anything that's 300 feet from another neighbor. Unless it's in the middle of my house.
We don't want that.
Trustees have any other comments or questions at this point? Oh, okay. Trustee Eastman, then Trustee Clayton.
I'm still a little uncomfortable on the difference between the landscape waste and the woody landscape waste. I mean, it seems like there's elements of the trees, tree trimmings. I almost say we need to come up with one category so that it's easier to administer. I mean, what I can see is people saying, okay, this now qualifies as landscape waste so that I can burn it. I could see people shifting things into those categories and then thinking about how do you police that effectively, right? I mean, I know in our previous example of something that was difficult to police, I remember, Chief Dano trying to figure out, well, does this fit the criteria? I guess my thought would be, let's give it a little more thought as to whether we really need those two different categories.
Okay, well, I was trying to come up with a reason why something could occur outside of the normal leaf season. The definition of woody landscape waste was actually in the Lake County ordinance on open burning, so I thought maybe there was some provenance to it, but I take your point too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're burning, I mean, I understand kind of historically the need to burn entire trees or the thought of that, but that probably drives some other concerns given how long it would burn for to really remove it.
Trustee Clayton?
A couple of other questions. In terms of the prescribed burn, when we had our lot recently cleared of buckthorn and other invasives by Native Restoration Services, what they did was to pile all the buckthorn into piles around the property and then burned that to return the carbon to the soil. That's not, as I understand it, that's not technically a prescribed burn. So would that impact our cost sharing? They would have to haul all of that away.
Maybe we would include in prescribed burn the right to burn material that's removed during the preparation of the prescribed burn, as long as it's sort of coordinated in the same time period or the days after. And then it would become like really just part of that prescribed burn. Maybe we do that.
Okay.
Trustee Clayton, Trustee Jamerson, please.
Close enough. I think that the point that Trustee Clayton's trying to make is that it wasn't part of a prescribed burn. They were actually cleaning out the buckthorn.
Separately.
They did the same thing on our property when we cleaned out all our buckthorn. They cut all the buckthorn out, and then they created burn piles, and then they burned. They didn't need an EPA certificate for that because it wasn't a prescribed burn. So I think maybe
need a cost share burn permit.
That's what I was going to suggest. And the other thing I was going to suggest, if a tree limb falls, first of all, if a tree limb falls and it's
in the forest, does anybody?
And anybody doesn't hear it.
Yeah.
Unless it's dead. I mean, if it breaks off in a storm and it's still alive, there's no reason. I mean, you can't burn that. It's green. It's just. I mean, you'd have to.
Wait.
All right. Well, I may have misinterpreted what Trustee Hollander was saying then. So
yeah, I mean, I think that if it's small sticks, I mean, maybe you can, it's going to turn into a
smoky mess.
It's going to turn into an enforcement problem. Is what it sounds like to me. Because if you say, well, you can't burn sticks greater than an inch, then it's an enforcement issue, and it's going to be a nightmare. But I also think that if we can do something that says it's part of a cost share program, such as removing buckthorn, then it can be done by
licensed
experts, right? Yeah, I do have the woody landscape waste. I know why you did that. I think sometimes there is some crossover to. Trustee Eastman's comment, there's some crossover between the two, landscape waste and woody waste. I can see where that's going to be a concern too.
Trustee Smith, please.
The other thing I was just going to add, and kind of building on the idea of burning buckthorn that's been removed, whether it's an inch or 2 inch, I mean, whatever it is, I think the other thing we need to be cognizant of is that the cost share program may not be being used by some because they prefer to do it themselves, or perhaps they don't want to pay for half of whatever that dollar value is. So I think we really need to think about how do we encourage residents to remove buckthorn and manage it in a manner that works for them. Doesn't mean that anything goes, but I do think that we need to be cognizant of using the cost share program is not going to be the solution for every home or every resident.
Trustee Clayton, please.
One more comment, I promise. On top of page 43, the first sentence, it says, "The village may order the extinguishment of any open burning, whether or not an air alert or fire alert exists, when smoke or odor emissions become a nuisance given the specific conditions." Makes open burning, I'm having a little trouble taking, but my basic point is, if there's a complaint to the village and the Director of Community Services goes out and says, under any circumstances, any fire is going to give off smoke or odor emissions. So basically, it's an open-ended permission to ban that under any condition, isn't it?
There's some judgment involved. I'm thinking of, for example, if the particular wind direction, someone decides to put a fire in one spot on their lot and the particular wind direction is carrying it directly into another house, I would say that's a situation where we ought to be able to say, no, that doesn't work there. That fire doesn't work there. Now, it's not necessarily a national air alert or fire quality alert. It's just, there's some common sense.
And I agree with that, but this wording is very open-ended.
We could say, with the concurrence of the village president, I mean, we could make, something like that.
There you go.
No.
or duly appointed, sustainability committee.
Trustee James.
Keep in mind that a lot of this, not a lot, but there's going to be a number of cases that when this stuff is being burned, it's not when the community services directors here, it's going to be the police that are going to have to go out there.
The point well taken. As we look through all of this,
So
we've got to have it.
You got to give them some clear guidelines.
They have to, yes, it has to be, it can't be going out and measuring the size, the diameter of the sticks. It just can't. We can't put our officers in that situation. They do a great job now with community relations and getting things done, but we've got to be very mindful when we put ordinances together, how and who is going to be enforcing them. So.
Well, I mean, I'll look at that again. I
Just something to think about.
I
as we
struggled with
continue
that
these
sentence. I
discussions.
probably rewrote it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, and it ain't going to be the village president, all right?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Not an expert,
It
sorry.
needs more work.
Chief, would you like to add?
If the trustees are done, I have a question.
Oh.
I didn't want to butt in front of any of the trustees.
Oh, are you sure?
Okay.
Matt, would you?
On C2 on page, what are we here? 42, thanks. On page 42, provided an air alert or fire alert is not in existence, open burning of woody landscape may be conducted between sunrise and sunset, but not more than 3 days in a calendar month. So if we're not having them get permits, how are we going to know?
So because we're probably going to get rid of woody landscape waste anyway, stay tuned for the next draft.
Okay. Well, I mean, anything that you put in there, I would say they're only allowed to do it so many times per month. I mean, I don't think we can know how to enforce that unless they had to get a permit, which I know at least one of the trustees was against doing that. So, okay.
Comments from the, come on, Mac. Yeah.
Okay.
Who was the famous legislator who said that making laws is like making sausage? Does anyone know who that was?
No, that's not.
You don't think it's accurate?
Dirksen. I'm thinking Dirksen. No? Okay, Google it. Somebody's got a phone here.
That's
right?
okay.
Go ahead, Meg. Thank you.
Yeah, so I collected a list of comments. Yes, Meg Redowski. Sure, RETELEWSKI. SKI. Sure. So I have collected a number of comments after reading the first draft. And first of all, thank you for taking our request very seriously and spending the time on reviewing it. This is great. So I have a list of comments, which some of them have been already discussed, which is reassuring. So the burn ordinance for us, from our point of view, presents a clear ethical dilemma, balancing the health and the safety of the community against the convenience of a few residents. We appreciate the board is looking into the revisions of the ordinances. After reviewing the first drafts, we have some comments. Number one, given the most leaves and branches will be intact in the summer, we believe there should be no burning between June and September. These are very warm months with high heat indexes and dry months increasing the chance of the fire. Number two, based on previous board hearings, local fire department is against any burning. In addition, there is not enough fire hydrants in the area, so that's a significant safety issue. In addition, other neighborhoods and villages that have been researched are not allowing burning in general or have a system in place to be able to handle landscape waste. Number three, and it's provision C2, as Chief Dana pointed out, it's currently the way it's written, it's difficult to enforce, I would imagine. And that's the provision provided an air alert or a fire alert is not an existent, open burning of woody landscape waste may be conducted between sunrise and sunset, but for no more than 3 days in any calendar years. So this does not seem enforceable. It will be essentially a resident's voice against the police or the fire department. And from our experience, some residents will openly deny facts about how often they burn despite pictures and evidence collected from neighbors and multiple complaints. So something to the extent of clearly identifying a specific date, let's say a Tuesday, first Tuesday of every month, just make it very clear, or within certain hours during those days, will be a little easier to enforce, I would imagine, for Chief Dana's team. Number four, recreational fires, like quote unquote recreational fires and boil fires, should be either disallowed or clearly specified as anything can become a recreational fire. We don't want the situation when someone purposefully misclassifies this type of fire simply because it's a loophole in the ordinances. We don't want people just to burn landscape waste and call it recreational. So just making it quite specific would be super helpful. We believe specific hours for burning should be considered. Otherwise, what we've observed in our neighborhood, and it's not just one isolated incident, it has happened and with multiple households, unfortunately, over the last several years. If there is an open sunrise to sunset allowance, people do start at 7 a.m. in the morning and go all the way until 9 p.m. by burning nonstop. Some residents will use all opportunities to continue to burn. This is both dangerous and unhealthy. And the issue with that is that even the smoldering waste left is through the night and triggers fire alarms in the neighboring households, which is obviously an issue. A definition of landscape waste with landscape woody waste, it's been discussed for us, it's a little confusing as well. So if we're reading this and it's somewhat unclear, perhaps there's a little more clarity about this would be super helpful. And finally, allowing burning of waste for 2 weeks, April 15th through the 30th and November 1st through the 15th seems very generous. We believe it should be limited to at most 1 week and perhaps earlier part of April and potentially later in November, especially since these are all days, unless there's some sort of a compromise that could be, for those 2 weeks, but very specific number of hours during the day, because I can't imagine that somebody would want to burn 2 weeks straight, although we have seen this unfortunately happening in our neighborhood. But just sort of having some guardrails would be super helpful. Finally, in your revision, please consider written direct responses. I know Mayor Ford has already received those from multiple neighbors who could not be present today to hear their concerns as well. This is a significant health and safety concern. We are actually afraid sometimes when the smoke is so dramatic that there's going to be a fire. And it's just not a matter of if, it's when. And I think this is something to keep in mind. So this is obviously a big safety concern, and we trust that the board's revision will prioritize residents' well-being, allowing us to feel safer in our own homes. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration.
Thank you very much. Are there any other, oh, yes.
Hello. Laura, L-O-R-A, Millman, M-I-L-L-M-A-N. So my first question is, why do we allow burning? Who's burning and why are they burning? So you might be burning, so I'm all ears to find out, why are you burning? Because, yes. Come, Julie, yes.
Really? Okay. Can we join in or what?
So I'm going to just highlight, my neighborhood was a bunch of us that burned. I haven't burned in 4 years, but when I bought my property, it was all up, walls upon walls above one. And I got quotes, and it was cost share. I laughed at the amount of money they wanted an hour, and I decided I was going to do it myself. So I did it. And I have my nice little flag from the county saying I'm buckthorn free, and I burned. And I didn't just burn for 1 week. I burned until the buckthorn was gone. I also hired a tree company to remove the big trees that I couldn't burn safely. But in order to restore woodland, burning is necessary. And some of us aren't going to hire expensive landscapers to help us do our restoration, because some of us actually moved here because we like to actually do the work outside. So what I understand, and it is a health concern, it is a safety concern. And if I had a neighbor that was burning all the time, I would be right exactly where all of you are. But some of us have woodlands, and in order to restore woodland, fire is necessary. You can't do it without.
Right.
So I haven't burned in 5 years, but I might do a little burning this sometime in the next couple of weeks, because I have a couple of areas I do need to clear out a little bit in order to allow wood to.
Let me tell you, what training do you have to do this?
What training do I have? Well, I've been gardening for a long time, and
What training do you have?
Oh,
Wait.
All right, no, everybody, time out. Julie, could you please, yes, thank you.
So my
If you'd
point
like to
is
continue, thank you
that
very much, Laura.
Somebody moves in next to you, and they're, all of a sudden, you see some flames, going out, and they're burning whatever. I find it to be scary, because I don't know what they're doing, and if it's safe, and if they're watching it. I have no way to police them. I have no way to say, are they standing there watching the flame? So for me, I just think that this is a very antiquated thing to do. I mean, if it's because it's a money issue, I think that all the negative things that burning causes should be considered. It's not as though they're burning and it's not going into into the air, okay? And climate change. It's like, here we are, we're going to preserve our lands. I mean, climate change, smoke going into the air, that's not helping, okay? And so with all these modifications in the ordinance, and it's so confusing, I'm just wondering if you can't just say, no burn. If it's a controlled burn, like for buckthorn, if it's a controlled burn that has something to do with preserving the lands, okay. But having a resident who probably has, whether they have experience or no experience, just moving in and just doing their own thing and burning is risky. And so if you might say, well, we haven't had an issue, nobody's house burned down here yet. I mean, that's not being proactive. That's like, well, maybe we should wait till somebody's house burns down to say no burn. So I just find it just unbelievable at this day and age that we're just allowing people to burn. without any type of training, without a permit. Even if we restrict them, how's it going to be enforced? So that's my thought. A no burn unless there's a permit for the burn and it's helping the environment.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to address the board on the topic?
Hi there. I'm tempted not to use the microphone because it seems like it goes in and
You
out.
have to use the microphone because
Okay.
It's a tape, it's the recording, it won't get you.
I want to suggest that you hire GAN Music and Sound to fix this. Okay. My name is Gail Gand, Gand, and it's my brother's company, not mine. He could fix all this for you. I've lived here in Riverwoods almost 30 years now, and I think my brother's lived here even longer. And I live on Gemini Lane in John Schmidt's house. So I live quite close to the people that you're hearing from tonight. I live the next street over from where some of this excessive burning seems to be happening. So I just want to speak in support of putting some kind of extensive guardrails and putting some more restrictions on people's ability to burn their debris on their property. I know that for 20 years we had what's in place now, and it seemed like it worked. But we have a new style of person out there, and it's someone who does not think of their neighbors. They don't seem to be concerned with the community. They're not making decisions based on what they're surrounded by or who they're surrounded by. They're basically just doing it for themselves and doing what they want for themselves. So I think as a village, we need to help these people do the right thing. So I want to encourage you guys to come up with some new standards that will help them do the right thing for our community, for our health, for our air quality. One of my suggestions, and I understand it's difficult to only burn a couple weeks, perhaps in the spring, and a couple weeks in the winter. I have, tree guys that come and take stuff down, and you never know when they're coming, and sometimes they're 2 months late. What I would love is to have the ability to have one day a month where you could burn a particular day. So just like we do the alarm when we test our sirens, it's the first Tuesday of every month. So when I hear those sirens and I'm like, oh God, is someone's house on fire? I'm like, oh no, it's the first Tuesday of the month. I know what that is. So if we had a designated day, like the first Sunday of every month, not only would it allow people to feel like they could save up their waste, and they, in less than 30 days it's coming, but for people who plan outdoor events, they know when not to have their outdoor event because people will be burning that day. It also will make it much easier to regulate if someone's doing it more. If you say one day a month, someone can say, oh, but I haven't had my day yet. If it's a designated day for the whole village, it's much easier to keep track of and to police and to regulate and to plan. So that was my idea, and I appreciate you guys looking into providing some kind of regulations and guardrails for us. I appreciate you taking care of our neighbors. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board on the topic or on another topic? We can switch topics. It's okay. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. There's no old business on the agenda, so now
We didn't have actually a motion for first reading on this. I think we just went into
we went into discussion.
I'll make a motion for first reading. Is it too late?
No.
I don't know.
Second, I'll second that.
You were going to first read a contract.
I know.
so
What
don't
can I
know.
tell you?
Okay, I think it's an all in favor.
Yes.
Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for all your comments. Thank you for the discussion. Moving along, old business, none this evening. Committee reports, Finance and Economic Development. Trustee Clayton, please.
No report.
Communications, Trustee Dickon isn't with us this evening. Woodlands Ecology Legal. Trustee Eastman, please.
I just add one thing that I'm working with RPC on trying to get the qualifications for Tree City USA. So we're going through the 4 different requirements, and hopefully by February is the goal to get something in front of the board.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Trustee Eastman? Okay, moving along, Land Use and Roads. Trustee Hollander is not with us this evening. Building and Utility Stormwater. Trustee Jamerson, please.
The building permits that were issued in the month of November is in the packet. Just quickly, the construction value year to date is $15.5 million, which is about 2/3 of what it was last year, but that's because last year we had a gazillion re-roofings in the village. We still have some coming, but they're not anywhere near the same quantity. I know utilities is under me, and garbage is not a utility, but there's an orange bag.
I was going to talk about this.
Oh, then never mind. I will let Trustee Smith.
Is there anything?
That's all I have.
Okay, are there any questions for Trustee Jamerson? Okay, seeing none. Community Services, Trustee Smith, please.
Yes, so to build on what Trustee Jamerson was saying, we've received some reports that LRS is taking the orange bags out of the recycling bins and placing them into the garbage bins, which means they're going to the landfill. So I've contacted both Swalco and LRS about this. I've not yet received the response. Concerned neighbor brought this to my attention, I think, either Sunday or Monday. So I just haven't gotten there yet, but I'm on top of it and hoping to get a resolution. Obviously, we're hoping that, and the orange bag is a reminder to everybody, these are the hard to recycle plastics. So like the meat trays that you would get from a Jewel, food stores and things like that, bags, candy wrappers, things like that. So obviously trying to divert as much of that from the landfill as possible. So I will have an update. As soon as I have an update, I will certainly let everybody know.
And they do have those bags at Jewel in Deerfield. I got the last box the last time I went, but.
You can also order them from, not Amazon. You can't get them on Amazon. You can get them at Menards, and I was on the hefty renewal bag today. I think it was Menards and Jewel were the closest options.
Who at LRS have you been reaching out to?
Bill Kinney.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, great.
Okay, I was going to say if you, that's supposed to be okay, thank you, good.
I talked to
You got the
Walter
right place.
Willis at Swalco as well. Well, I sent him an email.
Yeah.
I only sent it earlier today, so I didn't really expect to have a response before this evening.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to make sure that I didn't know something you didn't. Okay.
I'm sure you do.
I'm sure you don't. Okay, are there any questions for Trustee Smith? All right, moving on, Sustainability and Climate Action, Chairs Brightcoff and Bavaro.
Totally unplanned.
Are we on? We are starting to write the plan. It has begun writing, so we're hoping to have it done and drafted and to you guys maybe in February.
Big month.
So that's the plan.
Okay.
And I'll add is that our next meeting of the Sustainability Task Force is January the 8th.
Okay. That's it. Okay. Are there any questions for our chairs? Okay, thank you so much. Strategic Land Use, Trustees Clayton and Hollander.
We have completed drafting the survey that we want to do of the residents in conjunction with TESCA. And it's kind of a general survey. It's not tied to any specific plots within the village, but it has to do with amenities in general, what kind of amenities people take advantage of and what they might be looking for in Riverwoods for use on some of these lots. We are targeting a launch for the survey sometime after the first of the year, particularly not to conflict with the RPC survey and to make sure we're past the holiday season. We have quite an extensive notification and advertisement system planned in conjunction with Trustee Dilkin that has to do with the electronic newsletter and the putting a tagline on utility bills and a website tagline and a ditto on the electric sign. We're going to make posters with some graphic design to put up in businesses around town and so on and so forth. So we're moving along quite nicely with this. We have the QR code and the link taken care of, and we're ready to launch as soon as we can get some of the details together. That's it.
Terrific, terrific. Are there any questions for Trustee Clayton? Okay. Seeing no reason to go into executive session this evening, the next time and date of our regular board meeting is Tuesday, December 17th at 7:30. Do I have a motion for adjournment, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Same sign. Thank you.